Insightful, provocative, honest to a fault. You better find your safe space. The Nick Johnson Show is about to begin.
All right, welcome back. It's been quite some time. It's probably been just under a year now since I did my last podcast. So if you're here, thank you for being here. Without you being here, I would have no reason to be doing this. Most of you probably don't know who I am. Maybe you've seen a couple of my podcasts during the election season. But for those of you, the most of you that don't know who I am, my name is Nick Johnson. I'm a 26-year-old licensed plumber from the state of Connecticut. I work full-time in the trade in Connecticut, and I also attended Gateway Community College, got an associate's in business. So just a little bit of background on who I am. I started podcasting, like I said, about a year ago. And I quickly learned it was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I eventually started video recording myself doing the audio recording for the podcast. Started uploading that to Facebook, YouTube, that type of thing. So it just kind of came to be that way. And like I said, I primarily started doing the podcasting and the videos during the 2016 presidential election. It was absolutely insane. I'm sure you remember. I'm sure you're still talking about it. And I don't want to dwell today too much on old news. I do want to give you a little update, a little bit of where I was, why I stopped podcasting, why I'm returning to podcasting, where I want to take this show, and the reasons for it. So, during the election, it was absolutely insane. And all the attention everywhere you looked on social media was directed towards the election. And even your Aunt Sally that never goes on Facebook, she posts once or twice a year, and it's usually some awkwardly weird comment on your photo and you kind of want to delete it, but you can't because it's Aunt Sally. Even she was posting about how much she hated Trump. It may be Hillary, but it was probably about how much she hated Trump. And I was among those people. I felt that, it was my duty, my American duty to go on Facebook and make a status and talk about the election. I eventually took that to more unconventional means and started doing the podcasting, the videos. And, it was my way of expressing how I felt towards the election. And I think, in general, as people, we have a desire to be heard. I think that's very evident in the way we behave and just the way we go through about our day. But most importantly, I think we have a desire to be understood. And you see that when you're a kid, even a little baby, and you're learning to start to formulate words. You can't really articulate your thoughts, right? But you're still trying to enunciate something. You're trying to be heard. And you get upset when your parent, your sibling, is not understanding what you're saying when really you're speaking baby language. But I think that it's just a fundamental thing about how we are, how we're wired. I think we want to be heard, but not only do we want to be heard, we want to be understood. And while I was seeing what was going on during the election and seeing how Republicans and conservatives and Trump supporters were being placed in this basket of deplorables, as we heard, racist, bigots, all these different ists and names that we were being lumped into called, I felt like I had the obligation or felt obligated to speak up and be heard and kind of clarify what was going through the mind of a Trump-leaning supporter or a conservative. Even though I was very reluctant to vote for Trump, I did end up pulling the trigger for Trump. And it was something that I was very hesitant about, and I was very reluctant to vote for him. I knew I didn't want Hillary, but I wasn't sure about Trump. And, it's still always a wait and see. Something that I learned during this election, and it was very a lot of hysteria surrounding it. And something that I realized was that there was a lot of people that wanted to vote for Trump, but a lot of people felt as if that they had to defend their choice to vote. And I don't think that's accurate. I don't think we have to defend our vote. Really, what you're voting for is you're voting on your principles. You're voting for the person that you think best relates to or has the best chance of accomplishing goals that are consistent with yours. And that's it. And that's where it ends. And that's that. You vote, and it's in their control. I'm not responsible for what Trump does as an individual, no more than a Bill Clinton supporter was responsible for Wild Bill and Monica going at it in the White House. You voted for who you voted for, and you really hope for the best. And we felt like we were playing defense all the time. So with that, and in that experience, I noticed that I began to see this scale and that exists inside American politics. And during the 8 years of Obama, we were moving further and further to the left. So I'm not sure if my directions are right in my hands, but if you could imagine that as we're progressing through the 8 years of Obama, the scale was tipping towards the left. So let me do it this way. So that's better for you. So it was tipping to the left. So we were there's constant pressure against gun owners. There was aspirations for a borderless country. There was Obamacare. And then during the election, the media tried to be an additional force, an additional weight that pushed us in the direction to the left. They were openly polling for Hillary. You could debate me on it. I would love to. But it was very evident that the majority of major news sources were supporting Hillary or definitely against Trump. So, but on election day, the country, the world, we were all in shock that Trump won. And because we felt this enormous amount of weight on the left side of the scale, on the left side of politics. So most of us were pretty sure Hillary was going to win. For me, it was, and I hate to say that. I really thought that she was going to win. And in that experience, we learned a lot. And we learned that the media doesn't have or hold as much weight as we initially thought. So even with them being in the tank for Hillary, it didn't really make a difference at the end of the day. So with the results of the election, we started to see the scale shift. I think I'm getting this right, from left to right. So we're looking at the right, the conservatives, and what they're referring to as people in the alt-right. It was very amped up. It was very active. And so now what we've noticed, what we're seeing is most of the events that we're seeing unfold in the news are a response to the shift of power. So there's always an attempt to push the scale back in whatever direction is opposite of what just happened. So in this instance, we're talking about moving the scale to the left. So the left took to the streets, and we saw various protests and riots, and then we also saw the right cash them outside. I had to drop it. I couldn't hold it back. We met them in the streets, and when I say we, I'm referring to those that are on the right side of politics. So there was this constant conflict that was going on that still exists now. You see this in Berkeley. You see it everywhere. Very, very active political realm right now. So while I was watching all of this kind of unfold, I started to wonder if I was becoming a byproduct of this pattern of trying to shift the power. I was wondering if I was a part of that system, that pattern that exists in political discourse. And I was beginning to wonder if I was just contributing to the conservative echo chamber. Was I just another person repeating what everyone else is already saying? And was I just jumping on the scale with everyone else? And the echo chamber that I refer to, it's found on both sides of politics. It's on the left, it's on the right. And we see it, there's communities or areas, safe spaces, if you will, where both conservatives as well and primarily liberals, they separately but equally marginalize themselves in order to be surrounded with like-minded people that will help inflate and validate their opinions. And it, like I said, is blatantly obvious with the safe spaces that exist on college campuses, along with the silencing of conservatives and conservative speakers on campus. And it's manifested into this institutionalized jihad against dissenting opinions and views on campus. And now that doesn't go to say that this doesn't also exist on the right. But what I've noticed is that it tends to exist on the right more by choice than by force. And what I mean to say is that if you only listen to conservative speakers, if you only listen to Rush, if you only listen to Sean Hannity, or if you only follow conservative news channels, or you only hang out with your conservative friends and talk about conservative things, are you really developing your own opinion? And on the other hand, if you idolize Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton, are you really woke, bro? Like, are you really exposing yourself to all of the opinions and really making a well-rounded decision to carry on with an idea, with a principle, with a value? And that's when I realized that I needed to step back and I needed to better understand aspects of our culture as well as aspects of myself. And before I continue to broadcast my opinion, and let's stop right here. Let's be clear. I did say my opinion. I don't consider myself to be doing journalistic work. I don't think I'm a journalist. This is my commentary on current events. And little off the topic here, but it's going forward. It won't just be political and conservative things, current events that just in terms of politics. I really want to start introducing things that really make up our culture, because we've been so focused on politics, on Trump, on Hillary, on all these things, even past the election. It's June 2017, and it feels like it's still November of 2016 at times. So I want to start bringing back in things that I valued, and I hope that you'll value as well. And it goes back to simple things as music, simple things like food and cooking, and business itself. And that's something else that we're going to talk about today. But I think by only honing in on politics, I can't provide you the most value that I can. I think that there's value in everyone's opinion. I think you obviously have to do some sorting through the information, through what they're saying, their opinion, to find the value. But I think the best way for you to extract everything that I can give to you as an individual is to give you everything I got. And I don't only have political, punchlines in the bag here. So I want to start, as I move forward with this podcast, getting people onto the show to talk business, to talk music, to play their song, because essentially I have a studio set up here. Why not take advantage? Why would I seclude myself? Why would I seclude you from the opportunity to meet people that you're hear from people that you would have never heard from before? I digress. But many months have passed since the election, and President Trump is in office, and Democrats are trying like hell to get him impeached, and the president's Twitter account is alive and well. And in that last sentence, I literally gave you the current news cycle that you would see on major mainstream media. And that's going to be this news cycle. That'll be the next news cycle, and that'll be the news cycle after that. And that's why I decided to return to doing some podcasting. And I don't say that as if this is my epic return into radio or into podcasting. I know where I stand. It just was something, it was a process for me to come back around to doing this. And this is part of why that I decided to get back into it. And it's time to really break the cycle, I think. It's time to exit the echo chamber. And it's time to kind of come back to real life and stop being so political. Now, I say that as I'm giving you a political rant here, but you understand my point. So in this time, in this 8-9 months that I've taken away from this, I've seen our country change rapidly. I've seen friendships end because of an election. I've heard about marriages ending because of an election. That's absolutely insane, first of all. I've seen business conversations end because political conversations started. And I think that that's something that's terribly wrong with our society right now, with our culture, with the way we're doing things, the state of our country in general. Now, I understand the concept of voting with your dollar, meaning that if I don't necessarily agree with you or the way you conduct business, I can spend my dollar elsewhere, and I think that's acceptable. But if your business decisions, if your recruitment process is predicated on political discourse, I think you're going to fail. That's just my opinion. That's why I love to study business. That's why I love watching the way the market works, because business isn't about who you voted for president. And it's really about how the market responds to the value, to the product, to the service, to whatever you're bringing into your industry, into your market. It doesn't matter who you voted for whatsoever. and the market will respond to whatever you're doing, regardless of who you voted for. And that's when I started to consider the long-term impact on our generation. If you're a millennial, what is the long-term economic impact, business impact that this type of interaction among us, or lack thereof, because you're mad at me because I voted for Trump. I really don't care that you voted for Hillary. You get what I'm saying? So I started to consider the impact that this might have going down the road. Like, will we even be able to sustain standard business practices? Meaning, like, is Johnny going to get fired because he has a Donald Trump bumper sticker? Is this the way we're going to continue to go down? It's rather immature. It's rather not so business savvy, if you ask me. But aside from the business impacts, what was most noticeable was obviously the societal impacts, and that being that the echo chambers got louder. Arguments became filled with vitriol. It was anger rather than rationale and reason. And that's when we started to see this ramped up response from the left. And we saw a lot of things like the resistance or resist, not my president, then enter Antifa, which is, it's incredibly hysterical. It's this anti-fascism group. It's basically an anti-militant government type of group. But they actually just launched this the self-defense program. And so Antifa's it's different divisions, whatever you want to call different groups in different states. So they're trying to make this nationalized self-defense course that they're going to be training each other. It's terrible. I have to post a video. You have to see what these guys are doing. It's like watching Richard Simmons do aerobics, and I'm supposed to be fearful of you revolting. I'm not sure where they're going with it, but I'll post the video for you. You can get a laugh. I don't mean to be contributing to some of this nonsense here, but like, you're an anti-militant government group and you're doing wannabe militant exercises. You got to see it. Ponytails and everything. So, but these oppressed groups, right? Everyone knows about. Everyone knows about Resist and Not My President and Antifa. And all these oppressed groups started forming out of a need to create an identity in a world filled with identity politics. In other words, if you don't continuously segregate yourself into a new group or identity, you can't continue a fight for equality, and then you probably have to get a job. So, it's convenient for them to find a new cause to go out and protest for, because God forbid you got to do 40 hours. It's not me. Whatever. So they continue to do these actions. They continue to do these things, and the division continues. The protests and riots, they continue. The two sides of the political spectrum, they clash in the streets. We continuously see this, and until more recently, one man tried to change our country for good. On June 14th, 2017, just a little over 10 days ago, might actually be approaching 2 weeks now, a 66-year-old man named James Hodgkinson approached a baseball field in Virginia, where Republican congressmen and women were practicing for the annual Democrat versus Republican congressional charity baseball game. According to CBS, a man withdrew a weapon and fired 60 rounds into the baseball field. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise was shot in the hip and had to undergo surgery. A staffer, a lobbyist, and a Capitol Police officer were hit as well. Rand Paul is quoted as saying it would have been a massacre if it weren't for the response of Capitol Police, of a good guy with a gun. Now, this, in my opinion, is an act of terrorism. This was premeditated. Hodgkinson was found with a kill list of Republican congressional members. He was intent on killing as many Republicans as possible that day. In my opinion, his intent was to start a war, to start a civil war. If anyone supports what James Hodgkinson did, I'm convinced that you're calling for the destruction of our country. This is not to be commended. This shouldn't be viewed as ironic or comical because pro-gun Republicans were being shot at. This is to be unilaterally condemned. This should be viewed as a point of reconciliation. It shouldn't be used as a political wedge to continue to divide us. If we can't collectively agree that we can't go on in this direction where people are taking to the streets to kill Republican congressmen and women. Now, I'm not the one to blame the media, to blame the rhetoric. I think the rhetoric is just as responsible in this instance as the gun. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't think anyone saying whatever the negativity they're saying about Trump could possibly be inspiring people to do ridiculous and harmful things. I don't think they're responsible for them. I think we as individuals are responsible for ourselves. And I think collectively, we kind of have to work these things out amongst ourselves once we get to these types of points. So if we can't collectively agree that we can't go on in this direction, I think we've legitimately lost our moral compass. We can no longer discern what's morally right or wrong. We're simply reacting to emotion and feelings. I think we need to come back to reasonable conversations. We need to return to a respectful debate of ideas, not to political warfare in the streets. We need to stop with the identities and the groups and the names and return to we the people. I'm not asking you to change your political ideas, your values, or your principles. I'm simply asking you to stop prefacing yourself with all these different names. So while my political views, they haven't changed, I'm still conservative. I still got Reagan behind me. I'm still an NRA member. I'm still pro-life. But I will no longer be prefixing myself with these things, with these titles. I'm simply an American that wants to be heard and wants to be understood, just like you do. So, going forward, let's just be Americans. Let's get together on common principles, like, for example, that no one should be going out into the street with the intent on killing political party members on either side for any reason. It's not acceptable. It's not sustainable. We need to be able to move forward. So that's it. That's all I got for you today. Maybe a lot to digest, maybe not. I think it's very simple. I think it's very much common sense, and I think we need to return to just very basic ideas and just the things that make up our human nature. So, going forward, like I said, it won't be just simply dwelling on politics. I think that these things are very important to us. I think they absolutely affect our culture. They affect our lifestyle. But I don't want to continuously hone in on them because I think that there's more valuable things going on. Like I said, these things are important. But I just don't think we need to be dwelling there any more than we already are. So going forward, we're gonna make this thing a little different. We're gonna make it interesting. Every once in a while, there's gonna be somebody sitting next to me here. We're gonna have good conversation. We're gonna return to the real things that matter here. So I'd like to thank you for joining me here today. Keep coming back for more. You could find me at facebook.com/NickJohnsonCT, YouTube, The Nick Johnson Show, Twitter, Instagram, @NickJohnsonCT. I'll talk to you soon.